decades.
Welcome
right?
back. Today we're
the
diving
U.S.
deep into
government
a
line
really
was
fascinating
basically
case, one that really takes
supernatural
first-hand
stuff,
accounts
psychic powers,
against
telepathy,
official stories.
seeing things far
We're
away
talking
with
about
your
the Japan
mind.
Airlines Flight
Pure fantasy.
1628
That's what they
incident
told
from
everyone.
1986.
Yeah, that was the public face.
And the sources here are
Complete
pretty
skepticism.
solid. It's not just
But,
a quick glimpse of
while
something
that was the
weird.
official story,
We've got
behind closed
a
doors,
detailed
something
hour-long observation from a
something
veteran
much
flight
stranger
crew,
was
and
apparently
crucially,
going
radar
on.
confirmation
Deep
documented at
inside
time.
the intelligence
So let's set the
community.
scene. It's November
It's a really
17th,
interesting contrast,
1986.
isn't it?
We've got
Publicly,
this
it's all
huge
scientific
Boeing 747
dismissal.
cargo
Privately,
plane,
the
JAL
Pentagon, the CIA,
1628.
they're clearly wrestling with something very different. These fantasies suddenly become a serious strategic issue.
Exactly. And that worry, that sort of creeping fear about psychic warfare, it leads to one of the honestly most bizarre and top-secret projects of the whole Cold War, Project Sunstreak. I mean, just picture an actual government project trying to weaponize the human mind, funded off the books.
Absolutely. And what really makes this officially the cover story, or maybe the initial idea was, is a credibility remote viewing of the observers.
Right.
We're not talking about someone snapping a blurry
ability
photo
for
from
trained
their
people to
backyard.
just
This is a professional three-person
distant
flight
places,
crew in
secret enemy
optimal viewing
bases, maybe even
conditions,
peek into
really.
the future.
So our mission
all just
today
using their
is
minds.
to dig into those
And we should be
eyewitness
clear,
accounts,
this wasn't
which are incredibly
some,
consistent, by the
side
way.
hobby. It
And
wasn't
then
just
pair
a few
that
folks
with the
messing
radar
around.
data.
Okay.
You
This
want
was
to
a
understand
strategic
why
move,
this became
a
such a big
direct
deal for
response to
official
what they thought the
agencies,
Soviets
a
were
potential
doing.
national
They were
security issue,
urgently trying to
and
get an
maybe
edge
even
in
more
a
importantly,
completely new
why
kind
there are
of,
serious
battlefield.
allegations
And that's what
from
we're doing today. We're
inside
going to
the
peel
FAA
back those
itself
layers of
about
secrecy,
suppressing that data.
really
That might be the real
deep
story.
dive into
Okay, let's start right at the
Sunstreak
beginning. Captain
and
Traucci
the kind of
first spots
wild
something.
conspiracy
Two groups
theories
of
are
lights
still swirling
off to his
around.
left.
Yeah,
a bit
because the
below the
story goes
747,
way
his first
beyond
thought.
just psychic spying.
Military
Oh,
jets,
absolutely.
maybe.
It
They
might
were
have
near
cracked
Eielson
open the
Air Force
door
Base.
to, well,
Makes sense.
alien contact,
But
maybe even
these lights
some sources suggest
pretty quickly blew
interdimensional
that
conflict.
theory out of the
It gets
water.
pretty out there.
It really
Tarochi's
does.
description
So we're going to
goes
look at where it
way
came from, the
beyond
really
standard
unsettling things that
navigation
viewers
lights. He
reported
talked
seeing,
about
the
numerous lights
weird
clustered
overlaps
together,
with
almost
old
like
occult
city
stuff,
lights.
and these
mixed in
incredible
were these
claims
really
about
intense revolving
contacting,
lights, pulsating
the
lights too.
unknown.
It just
So yeah,
screamed
settle in.
complex
This is where things
structure,
get
something
weird.
much bigger
So
than
where
a
did
typical
Sunstreak
fighter
even
jet.
come from?
And the way they
It
moved,
really kicks off back
they
in the
kept
early
pace,
70s. There was
side by
this sort
side
of
with this massive
quiet panic
747
brewing
maintaining a
in
kind
the
of
intelligence
staggered
world during the
formation.
Cold War.
That's the key
Right.
point,
Word
isn't
got
it?
out
Not
that
just
the
flying
Soviets were
parallel,
pouring
but locked
serious
in
money and
formation
effort
with
into
them.
parapsychology.
But things really
And not
ramped
just
up when these
dabbling. We're
objects,
talking
which were
staged
keeping
monster
some distance,
experiments,
suddenly
telepathy,
just moved.
moving objects
Yeah, the
with
sources
mind,
describe it as an
psychokinesis,
abrupt,
and
almost
crucially,
instantaneous
remote
shift.
viewing.
They darted
Yeah,
right
and
in
when
front of the
US intelligence
747.
picked up
Suddenly
on
they're only
this,
500 to
alarms
1,000 feet
went
ahead.
off.
I mean,
Big
think about the
time
physics
in
of
the
that
Pentagon,
move. The G-forces
especially.
You can
involved would be
imagine the
immense.
fear,
It points
right?
to
What if this
technology
stuff is
far
real?
beyond what
Even
we
if it only
typically
gives a
think of as
small
human
advantage.
capability.
Exactly.
Unless,
The
you know,
U.S.
with
could
some
be
kind of
completely
illusion.
blindsided
But the captain
in a
was
conflict
adamant
that
that doesn't
physically
use
close.
And
bombs or
being that
spies in the
close, the
traditional
descriptions
sense.
got
So this
really
perceived
specific.
threat, this
not just lights
potential
anymore,
psychic
but
gap,
actual shapes.
it leads
directly
structure.
to the CIA
Tarochi
starting
saw a
Project
definite
Stargate,
silhouette.
Which
He
was
called
kind
it
of the umbrella
squarish or
program. And under
rectangular.
Stargate, you
He
get
even compared
these
it to a
sub-projects.
boxcar.
Right,
Project
and he noted
Sunstreak
these
was one of them,
technical-looking
run by the
features. The one
Defense
that really
Intelligence
sticks to you
Agency,
is
the
the
DIA,
row of,
mostly through the
what he termed
1980s.
nozzles or
So
thrusters along the
Sunstreak
side.
gets going.
He said
And
these
on
things would flare up
paper,
sometimes with this
its
bright
job sounds,
yellowish-orange
well,
light.
almost straightforward
It
for that
suggests
world.
some kind of
Recruit
propulsion
people,
or
train them as
energy
remote
system
viewers,
totally unlike
get them to
conventional
project their
aircraft.
consciousness,
And then there was
basically.
that strange
and
detail,
spy
the
on
oscillating
Soviet
vertical
facilities.
lights. He
Gather
fantasies that they
intel.
looked like Christmas
Standard
lights.
espionage, just
So you've
with
got
a
this
very
kind of industrial
unconventional
boxcar
method.
But that's
shape,
not how it played
but
out,
with
was
these
it? It became
almost
clear pretty
decorative
fast this
lights.
wasn't
It's a
just about
weird
finding
mix.
But
missile
what really
silos.
pushes
No, almost
this
right
beyond
away,
just
the viewers
seeing
weren't just
something
describing,
strange is the
submarine
physical
pens or radar
sensation.
installations.
The crew
The
reported
data
feeling
started
heat,
getting
actual warmth radiating
Weird
from these
how.
objects.
Well,
when they
that
were
was
up
the big
close.
turning point, really.
Tarochi
The
even said it
viewers
felt
started
like
reporting
fire on my
things that,
face.
based on our normal understanding
That
of physics and
specific
reality,
detail,
just
the feeling
shouldn't
of
exist.
heat.
Things that shouldn't exist.
That's
Okay,
incredibly
now
hard
we're
to
getting
explain
somewhere.
away.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The
If it was
information
just
they were bringing
Venus
back
or
was
some weather
pushing
phenomenon,
way
you
past
wouldn't
the
feel heat
boundaries
like
of what
that.
anyone
Not through a
expected.
cockpit
It
windshield. at
fundamentally
35,000
challenged
feet.
what
It
the
just wouldn't
program
happen.
was even supposed to be doing.
So the sources
So
really
tell me
used
about
that
these
point
viewers.
to
They
argue
weren't
against
just random
simpler
people off the street,
explanations.
right?
That
Yeah.
kind
Many
of
had
energy
military
output,
backgrounds.
that's
Strong
right,
enough
often
to be
felt
felt
as
as
heat
personnel
inside the plane.
and
they went through
implies
this
a
really
massive power
specific
source.
structured structured
significant thermal signature.
Controlled protocols was the term.
These objects weren't just moving independently side by side.
CRV.
They displayed what the
So
crew
it wasn't
called
just
synchronous
like closing your
rotation.
eyes and hoping for
Meaning,
the best.
No,
one
very
object
systematic.
turned
They
or
might be
adjusted
given
its
just a
angle,
set of
the other
geographic
one would
coordinates or
instantly
maybe a
mirror the
random
exact
number
same
linked
movement.
to a
Perfectly
target.
synchronized.
Then they'd
Wow.
go through these stages,
Like
sort
they
of
were linked
drilling
somehow.
down,
Precisely.
describing
It
sensory
suggests
details,
either a single
sketching
intelligence
impressions,
controlling both, maybe
trying
remotely,
to
or some
build
kind of
a
direct
picture
link
of a
between
target
two
they knew
craft.
nothing about
Intelligent
consciously.
coordination, basically.
Okay,
Often
so
something hidden
this
miles away,
intense
maybe
close
even
encounter
sealed
with
in
the
an
two
envelope
boxcar
right there
objects
in
was
the rim.
already
And did it
pretty
work?
mind-blowing
Yeah.
initially. But
Well,
then they
the
peeled
early
off,
results
and the
were
situation
apparently
escalated even further.
Intriguing.
This is where the
Impressive,
quote-unquote
maybe, but small
mothership
scale.
comes into play.
You know,
Yeah,
sketches
this is
that
where the
looked
scale just
surprisingly
becomes
like
almost
a Soviet
impossible to
factory
grasp. Details about a hidden bunker that later matched spy
absolutely
photos.
enormous object
Enough
just
to keep the
materialized
funding flowing, definitely.
right in
Okay,
front
so
of
it
the
had
jet.
some legs,
Yeah.
but then, like you
Hiroki
said,
described it
things
as
took a turn.
disc-shaped.
A sharp turn, yeah.
Massive.
Because it's one
Like a
thing to
huge
sketch a building
sphere
you
or
shouldn't
even a
know about.
gigantic
It's something else
mushroom.
entirely
And
when
the
you're
size
training
estimate he
military
gave is
viewers
just
start reporting
staggering.
experiences
He said it
that
was
just
roughly twice the
flat
size
out
of an
defy the
aircraft
material
carrier.
world as
Can
we
you
know it.
picture that?
It's difficult.
What kind we're talking about a silent,
Well,
colossal
get
structure
this.
bigger than
Some
anything
viewers started
humans fly,
reporting
just hanging
energy
there at
beings.
35,000
Energy
feet,
beings.
effortlessly keeping
Not
pace with the
people,
747.
not animals, just
And the
conscious
description
energy
adds to the
forms that were
strangeness.
apparently
He said
watching
it was
them
a
while they
dull
were doing the
gray,
remote
metallic
viewing.
Watching the
green.
viewers,
The
okay, that's
texture
creepy.
reminded him of
Others
wrinkled
claimed they
aluminum
weren't just
foil.
moving across
No
space,
visible wings,
but
no
across
engines,
time.
no noise.
Getting
just this
glimpses
immense
of
thing.
ancient
It's really,
history
really
or even
hard to
future
fit that
events.
sense into
Whoa.
anything we knew
Time
about
travel.
aviation tech back in the
That's what they
80s,
reported.
even top secret
There's one
stuff.
really
The sheer
famous
size
or
is the biggest
infamous
Right.
account.
And it's at
A
this
viewer
peak moment, this
insisted
point
they
of
saw the
maximum
Egyptian
visual
pyramids being built,
absurdity
but
that the
not
hard
by
data finally
Egyptians,
comes in to back
by,
it up.
quote,
Because
tall,
Terauchi had been
luminous
radioing
entities.
Anchorage Air
Luminous
Traffic Control this whole
entities
time,
building the
asking, do you
pyramids.
see anything
Yeah.
near me? Sounds like something
and
from
initially
a,
ATC
fringe
saw nothing
documentary.
on their
Exactly,
scopes,
except these were
which is
reports
interesting in
coming
itself.
from within
Why is
a
that?
classified
Well,
military
It
intelligence
could imply
program.
the
That's what
objects
makes you
initially
stop and
had
think.
some way
Yeah,
of
definitely. Any other examples?
maybe
Oh, yeah.
avoiding radar
Another one,
detection,
just
or
as
maybe they were
strange.
just too small
A
or
viewer
too low
claimed they
relative
found
to
hidden
ground clutter at
spacecraft
first.
under the
But
ice
that
in
changed,
Antarctica.
especially when the
Hidden
huge
spacecraft.
object
Oh.
appeared
Like
and stayed put.
UFOs.
And
Seems to
Terauchi
be
started
the
taking evasive
implication.
action.
You
And
really tried to
guarded,
shake it, started
apparently,
making sharp
by some kind of
turns, dropped
consciousness
altitude
that
fast
resisted
from
intrusion,
35,000
like
feet
a
way
psychic
down to
guard dog,
29,000
but
feet.
not a
Just
dog.
trying to get
Okay,
away from
wow.
this thing.
But
So
the
these
sources say
reports,
the
were they
object just
ignored,
mirrored his every
filed
move.
away as crazy?
Effortlessly.
Well, officially, a lot of the
Maintained
stuff
its
was
position
probably
relative to the
downplayed or
jet no matter
buried,
what
classified deep.
Okay, so it's
But
maneuvering
inside the
intelligently.
project,
And that prolonged
the whispers
observation
started.
time, plus
the
its
idea
sheer
took hold
size
that
and
maybe
those
remote
maneuvers
viewing
is
wasn't just
apparently
about
what
spying
allowed
on
the ground
Soviets
radar to
anymore.
finally
Maybe.
lock on.
Maybe it
We're
was
talking
about making multiple
And this is where it gets even
independent radar
stranger,
systems.
right? The
You
connection,
had
or the
FAA
apparent
radar at
connection
Anchorage
to
RTCC.
occult
They confirmed
practices.
A definite
Yes, that's
blip.
another
And
layer to this
crucially,
whole thing.
the
That's just
military radar
fascinating.
at Elmendorf Air Force
People
Base
within the
also
program
picked up a
apparently
large
started noticing
unidentified
these
target near the
disturbing
JAL
parallels.
Flight.
So it wasn't just the
between
crew
the
seeing
remote
things.
viewing
You've got
techniques they were
confirmation from
developing and refining,
civilian air traffic
and
control and from
practices
the
found
military's
in
own air
really
defense
old
radar.
occult
This thing was
traditions.
physically Occult there.
traditions.
Like, there's even a quote from the radar
methods
operator telling
described
the
in
plane
esoteric
something like,
orders.
yeah, I've got a
Groups
primary
like the
target about
Hermetic
10
Order of
miles
the
behind you,
Golden
and
Dawn,
it's
or the
large.
Rosicrucians.
Undeniable
Okay.
radar
They were
return.
looking at
A
rituals
physical
for
object,
astral projection,
which
achieving
naturally
trance
prompted
states,
the military to
intense
scramble
visualization
F-15 fighter
exercises,
jets from
the whole
Elmendorf. That's a
idea of
serious
separating
response.
your
But they never made
consciousness
contact,
from
did
your
they?
physical
No.
body.
Wait,
Before the
so the
F-15s could
technique
get close
Sunstreak
enough,
was
the
teaching its
giant
military
UFO just
viewers.
vanished.
seemed to
Disappeared from the
directly
pilot
mirror
site or from the
these
radar screen
ancient mystical
simultaneously,
practices,
leaving
quite
the
striking when you
JAL
put them
crew
side by
completely
side.
alone
So the
again.
question becomes,
Which brings us to the aftermath.
was the Pentagon,
And like you said
was the
earlier,
DIA
this might be where the real story
inadvertently
lies.
stumbling onto
The crew
or maybe
lands in
rediscovering
Anchorage.
some
They
kind
give
of
detailed,
ancient
consistent accounts to
something
the
mystics
FAA
and secret
military
societies have
intelligence
been
right
using
away.
for centuries.
The evidence
That's the
seems
implication,
strong.
yeah. Was this
but the
military
official
intelligence
reaction
program
tells a
actually an
different story.
unwitting
Yeah,
or
and
maybe
here
witting
we
occult
absolutely have to
experiment?
talk about
That's
John
a
Callahan. He
pretty
wasn't just some
mind-bending thought.
low-level
And
guy.
it didn't
He was
stop there,
the
did
chief
it?
of the
The experiences
FAA's
got darker.
accidents and
They did.
investigations
Some
branch.
viewers started reporting
senior
encounters
technical
with
expert.
actively hostile
Initially,
presences.
Callahan was
hostile.
skeptical.
How?
You know,
They
he thought,
describe
veteran pilot,
entering
but
a location
fatigue,
mentally, projecting
maybe
their consciousness
misidentified
there
planets,
only to be
Venus,
confronted,
something like that,
not by
standard
human
procedure.
guards,
But then he
but
actually
by
looked at
what
the
they
evidence
described as
himself.
shadowy
Exactly.
entities.
He personally
things that seemed
reviewed the radar
fully
tapes,
aware of
the
their
actual
psychic
tapes,
intrusion
looked
and
at the
actively
flight data
tried to
recorder
block
information,
them
the
or
voice
push them
recordings
out.
Aware
from
of
air
them.
traffic control.
Yeah.
Like
And after
psychic
analyzing all
guards.
that raw
Essentially,
data,
yes. He
which raises a
concluded the
really
target was real,
profound and
unequivocally.
frankly
It wasn't an
unsettling
equipment glitch.
possibility.
It wasn't
Which
the
is?
planet Venus.
Well, if the human
He
mind
had
can
the
actually
proof.
travel
And that
outside
proof
the
led him
body,
to a pretty
maybe,
high-level meeting.
Maybe
right?
those
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
non-physical realms
A
aren't
classified
empty. Maybe other
briefing.
intelligences already live
He
there.
presented
Maybe they
his
don't
findings,
appreciate
the
visitors.
verified radar data
Exactly.
showing
Entities
this
that
huge
really
object
didn't
moving
want want
independently to a room packed with senior officials. We're talking CIA representatives, people from the White House Scientific Advisor's Office
for a very long time,
big
for a good
leagues.
reason.
And what
so if
happened
they
in
were
that
opening
room is
doors,
the core of this whole cover-up
what exactly
narrative.
did they find
Callahan's
on the other
account,
side?
which he only
Because some of the
revealed
most
publicly many
sensational
years later,
claims
is,
are
well, it's
about,
explosive.
well,
He claims the officials didn't argue with the data.
extraterrestrials.
They saw it, they
Absolutely. This is
acknowledged
where
it
the
was
story
real,
really
but
goes in
then,
high gear.
Then,
we
Then
actually
they
have
immediately
declassified
ordered him to
documents,
suppress it.
fragments.
He
hints really
says
that
he was
suggest
told
some
point
remote
blank,
viewing sessions were
never speak of
specifically
this
targeting
again,
Mars.
and that the radar
Mars.
tapes, the
Like
voice
the
recordings,
planet
all the
Mars.
crucial
The planet
data would be
Mars.
classified
There's
and
one
essentially
particularly
destroyed,
famous
gone.
session
Just
often
think about
cited,
that for a
where a
second.
viewer gives
The
this
head of
incredibly
accident
detailed
investigations for
description.
the FAA,
They
the
claimed
agency supposed
they
to
were
ensure air
observing
safety,
Mars
is
millions
allegedly
of
told
years
by
ago.
intelligence officials
Millions.
to
And they
bury
described
physical
seeing
evidence
these
of
tall
a massive
beings
unknown
sheltering
object
inside
flying around in
massive
control
pyramidal structure. Completely pyramids on Mars as their planet, from safety investigation to active civilization-facing extinction.
And it makes the official public statement that the FAA
it
put
is,
out
and it wasn't
later
just Mars.
seem,
Other sessions allegedly targeted
suspect.
well-known
Deeply
UFO
suspect,
hotspots and
because
crash
their
sites
official
on Earth,
explanation
including
completely
Roswell.
contradicted
Of course, Roswell had
Callahan's
to be in
internal
there.
findings.
And
They
viewers
blamed
reportedly
on
described seeing non-human
split
bodies,
radar
alien
image
artifacts,
of the
all hidden
JAL
away
1628
deep inside
itself.
classified government
Wait,
facilities.
split radar image.
So
How
not
does that
just
even
seeing
work?
things far
It's a
away,
known phenomenon.
but seeing
Sometimes
things the
radar
government
can
was
show a
actively
false
hiding.
echo near
That's
a
the
real
claim.
target.
It suggests the viewers weren't just passive observers.
Why not?
They were
Because if it was
potentially
just a split
uncovering
image, a
evidence
ghost
of
of
an
the
alien
747,
presence
it would
that
have
was
moved
being
exactly like the
actively concealed.
747.
And then there's
But the
Wright
radar
Patterson
data
Air Force
Callahan
Base,
saw
right?
and the
Always
military
comes
radar
up in these stories.
confirmed
Yes.
showed
Wright
an
Patterson.
object maneuvering
Another
independently.
chilling account
It changed
involved a
altitude
viewer who
differently,
claimed
maintained its
they
own position,
psychically
especially
entered
when
a
Terauchi
hidden
was trying to
chamber
evade
deep
it.
underground.
Okay, so that
What
explanation
is
doesn't hold water if you
continuous.
trust the radar
Holding
tapes Callahan
biological
You're not even close.
specimens
And you
that were
can't use the
completely
split
unlike
image
anything
excuse
known
when
on Earth.
multiple
Alien
radar
bodies,
systems,
basically.
including the
That's
military's
the
powerful
strong
radar at
implication.
Elmendorf,
And another
confirmed a
viewer,
separate
possibly
large
targeting the same
that they
location
went
or
with
a
such
similar
a
one,
frankly
claimed
flimsy
they
technical
witnessed some
excuse
kind
suggests
of
they just needed
psychic
something to make the
network.
problem go
something
away
connecting
publicly
human minds
fast.
to,
So you've got this
well,
huge
something else,
gap.
something beyond our
Credible
world,
witnesses,
out among the stars.
corroborated
Psychic
radar
network connecting
data,
us to aliens.
an internal
That was the
whistleblower
report.
saying it was
So you
real,
look at all these accounts
versus
together,
an official
Mars,
denial
Roswell, Wright
using a
Patterson's
weak
psychic
technicality.
networks.
It
It
forces
forces
you to consider the different possibilities, doesn't it?
It does,
Completely
and
different.
based on the
If you
source
take these
material,
reports at
looking
face value,
strictly
even
at the
just
evidence
partially,
presented,
the
particularly
implication
that
is
radar
huge.
confirmation,
Project
you can sort of
Sunstreak
break it down into three
might have
main
started
theories.
as espionage, but
First,
it seems to have
the
pivoted.
government cover-up
It became
theory.
about
This
preparing
aligns
for
perfectly
contact
with John
non-human
Callahan's
intelligence.
testimony.
Or maybe
It
more
assumes the
cynically,
object was
about
real,
making sure that
potentially
contact remained
non-human
a
or
secret,
highly classified,
kept far
and
away
the
from the
government
public
actively
eye.
lied to
But the
conceal
theories
its
don't even
existence or
stop
their
at just
inability to deal
ETs from
with
other
it.
planets,
Makes
do they?
sense, given
Some people
Callahan's
take it
account
even
with number
further.
two.
That's right.
Second is the
There's a whole
advanced
other branch
secret
of theory
military
suggesting
aircraft
Sunstreak
idea.
wasn't just
a
encountering
black
extraterrestrials,
project.
but
Given it was the Cold
potentially
War,
Alaska is
interdimensional
full of military
Interdimensional, like
bases.
decades.
Maybe
Right.
they were testing
The US
some radical
government line
new
was
stealth
basically
plane or drone.
Plausible on the surface.
Supernatural stuff.
But the details
Psychic
make it
powers,
tough.
telepathy,
That intense heat
seeing things
felt by the
far away
crew.
with your mind.
And the
Pure
estimated size
fantasy.
twice
That's
an
what they told
aircraft
everyone.
carrier.
Yeah, that was the
That
public
just
phase.
seems beyond
Complete
even the most
skepticism.
exotic secret projects.
While
of
that was the
1980s.
official story,
The power
behind
need,
closed doors,
the sheer
something,
scale.
well, something
It
much
strains
stranger was
credulity
apparently
for
going
human
on.
tech of that
Deep
era.
inside
Right,
the
which brings us
intelligence
to the third
community.
The
It's a
third
really
theory,
interesting contrast, isn't it?
extraterrestrial
Publicly, it's all
visitation.
scientific dismissal.
This explanation,
Privately,
while
the
obviously
Pentagon, the
extraordinary,
CIA, does fit the observed
they're
phenomena
clearly wrestling with
quite
something very
neatly.
different.
The
These
incredible
fantasies
speed
suddenly
and
become
maneuverability, the
a
silence,
serious
the impossible
strategic
size,
Exactly.
the apparent
And that
intelligent
worry, that
observation.
sort of
The
creeping
synchronous
fear
rotation.
about psychic
Exactly.
warfare, it
The
leads to one
technology
of the
displayed seems
honestly
orders of
most
magnitude
bizarre and
beyond known
top-secret
human
projects of the
capability
whole
at the
Cold
time.
War.
It
Project
points towards a
Sunstreak.
non-human
I mean, just
intelligence
picture
simply
an
observing
actual
the
government
747.
project
For
trying to
JAL
weaponize
1628
human
really
mind.
stands
Funded
apart,
off the
doesn't
books.
it?
It's
Totally
not just
see.
lights in the
And
sky.
officially, the cover
It's
story, or maybe
experienced
the initial
pilots,
idea was
prolonged observations,
remote
specific
viewing.
details,
Right.
radar
This
confirmation from multiple
supposed
sources,
followed by a
ability for
documented
trained people
internal
to just
conflict and an alleged order to
perceive
destroy evidence.
distant places,
It really
secret enemy
forces a
bases, maybe even
confrontation
peek
between
into the
credible
future,
data and official
all just
denial.
using their
The
minds.
core issue seems
And
to
we
be
should be clear, this wasn't some
Do you
like
believe
side hobby. It wasn't
the
just
highly
a few
trained
folks
crew,
messing around.
the
This
FAA's
was a
own chief
strategic
investigator
move, a
looking at the
direct
raw
response
data
to what they
and the
thought
multiple
Soviets
radar
were doing.
screens?
They were
Or do you
urgently
accept
trying
the
to get an
official,
edge in a
technically
completely
questionable
new kind of,
explanation that came out later?
Battlefield.
And
that
that's what
leads
we're
us
doing
right
today.
to
We're
our
going to
final
peel
thought,
back
something
those
for
layers
you,
of
the
secrecy,
listener, to really chew on.
deep dive into
If
Project
John
Sunstreak
Callahan's story is
and
accurate,
the kind
that
of
genuine
wild
radar evidence
conspiracy
of
theories that
superior
are still
technology
swirling around
was
it.
ordered,
Yeah, because the story
classified,
goes
and
way
destroyed,
beyond just
then what was
psychic
the bigger
spying
threat
Oh,
in the eyes of
absolutely.
those officials?
It might have cracked
Was it
open
the
the door
existence
to,
of this
well,
unknown,
alien contact,
potentially
maybe
uncontrollable
even some
technology
sources
itself,
suggest
flying
interdimensional
freely in
conflict.
sensitive
It gets pretty out
airspace?
there.
It really
Or
does.
was the bigger
So we're gonna
threat
look
the
at where it
public
came
finding
from,
out
the
that their
really
government had
unsettling things that
absolutely no
viewers
idea what it
reported
was and couldn't do
seeing,
anything about it?
Which
weird
part
overlaps
of
with
that
old
official
occult stuff
denial, that
and
attempt
these
to make it all
incredible
go away,
claims about
strikes you as the most
contacting
unsettling aspect
well,
of this
the unknown.
whole
So yeah,
incredible
settle in.
encounter?
This